Hey everyone! So today we're going to talk about the concept of warming up and the right and wrong way to prepare for a workout. So first I want to address the term warm up because unfortunately that term gives a very broad representation of what you should be doing before a workout. That's not always ideal. So because it's called a warm up a lot of times, the concept is that all you have to do is get your body temperature up, get your heart rate up, and you're good to go and you're safe. That also results in people tending to do the exact same thing before every single workout, which isn't always ideal. Hello. Stay. There we go. Anyway, so the issue there is that in order to effectively prepare for a workout, you don't just need to get your body warm, you need to make sure that your body and your muscles know what they're going to be expected to do and they're prepared for that. So yes, having your body temperature up to a certain point is important because cold muscles don't stretch and contract the same way, which is of course going to be a problem. But there are a lot of components to every workout, and the most effective way to prepare for a workout is to include movements that are specific to that workout. So a lot of people's warm-up tends to look something like spending some time on a treadmill or an elliptical and maybe doing some world's greatest stretch or some general dynamic movement. Now that does get you warm, but if you think of the movement that goes into walking on a treadmill or on an elliptical or doing those dynamic exercises, all you're really getting your body ready to do is step-ups, because that's the only movement that you're truly mimicking with that, or walking and running. If you're preparing for specific kinds of workouts, ideally you get yourself warm and do all of those things, but you also include some movements that are specific to what you're doing that day. So for example, if you're going to be deadlifting that day, you want to get your body ready to, one, brace your core, which is always going to be one of the more important parts of a warm-up, which I prefer to call movement prep. So that's going to be one of the most important parts, to make sure that you're able to brace, that the musculature here is awake and active, and that it's been told what it's supposed to be doing that day. So doing some light core activity to wake up your core, and then some movements that specifically mimic what you're going to do. So again, using the deadlift example, I'm going to do this from a kneeling position because that's kind of the movement prep that we're going to be working on first. So a deadlift is really just hinging back, reaching for the bar, making sure you're tight here, and then coming back up. So you hinge back and you're back up. So for that reason, you of course want to work on bracing your core, but you also want to make sure that your hamstrings and glutes are active and that your body is prepared to hinge properly. Just because you know what to do doesn't mean that your muscles always do and they're always ready. I have to reteach my hips to hinge correctly every single time I work out. So one example that I like for that is holding a kettlebell behind you, because this gets you into that open chest position, bracing your core, and then just doing what I was doing a second ago. So hinge back, push the bell back, make sure that you're hinging at the hips only, and then coming all the way back up. To do this, my hamstrings and glutes have to be active, my core has to be active to avoid curving at the spine, and I'm opening up my chest to make sure when I'm deadlifting, I'm not deadlifting like this. So that's one example. Another example for a squat day is to mimic a squat, but in a more controlled environment. So taking the squat movement and almost exactly turning it 90 degrees so that you are on all fours, shoulders locked back. So yes, of course, most of the time when you're squatting, you're gonna have a barbell here, but corkscrewing your arms back still wakes up the muscles here and trains that muscle to perform during your workout. In this movement, the biggest focus here is your core. So it teaches you to move your knees and hips correctly before your squat, but it also wakes up your core, so it kind of does double duty. And what you're going to do is get yourself in a neutral spine, so no tucking or overarching, just nice and neutral with a nice S-curve there. And very slowly shift your weight backward, focusing on not allowing your tailbone to tuck under as you go. Go as far as you can, just like you're going to the bottom of a squat. And then shift your weight forward and back. And I'll admit, mine probably didn't look perfect because my control over my hips isn't perfect, and that's the first set that I did today. But after I do 4 or 5 of those or a couple of sets, I'll be more in control and have better connection to my hip movement to make sure that I'm not straining my lumbar as I squat. So those are just a couple of examples of what you can do. Yes, there's going to be things that always appear in your workout depending on your body. For example, I personally have very, very tight shoulders and a very tight thoracic spine. So my ability to reach up or back, or my ability to twist is a little bit limited. So because my thoracic mobility and my shoulder mobility is going to be relevant in pretty much everything that I'm doing, I always do some movements to help open up those areas and mobilize through there. Another thing that I want to just briefly talk about when it comes to sort of movement prep as well as post-exercise prep or post-exercise recovery is static stretching. So for a long time, it was very normal to statically stretch, so to get into position and hold right before you work out. Recently, studies have shown that in most cases, there's always exceptions to every rule, but in most cases, it actually reduces your potential for performance and in some situations can put you at risk of injury if you statically stretch before a workout. That's just because static stretching temporarily lengthens the muscle tissue, and that is awesome after a workout, but muscle tissue that has been lengthened beyond its normal state, going into a workout, if you suddenly lengthen it a little bit and then try to rapidly contract it, one, you're going to have less potential to do that, but you're also going to be at a greater risk of tearing it by trying to force it into such contradictory end ranges. So unless you've had a physical therapist, doctor, or a trainer encourage you to statically stretch a particular muscle prior to your workout, save the static stretching for after the workout. The last thing that I want to touch on for proper movement prep is foam rolling. I am not going to go through foam rolling right now. I want to show you what a foam roller is. And foam rolling is something that should be step 1 in everyone's movement prep, because this is a really fast and efficient way to get blood flowing to the appropriate muscles. A lot of times what I tell people to do is just quickly paint the body with the foam roller. So just kind of roll up and down on every muscle a couple of times. That's just going to stimulate blood flow to make sure your blood is circulating through all of your muscle tissue and it's more ready for movement that day. So this is step 1. And then the following things would be mobility work as needed for you. So I personally would do foam rolling, my shoulder and thoracic mobility movement, and then specific movement prep for that day. So the first half of your movement prep is going to be the part that's most likely going to be the same almost every time, but that second half should be specific to that day. I hope all of that made sense, and I hope now you feel more prepared to movement prep before your workouts and not just warm up. Bye.